Hello everyone, we are ready to continue working on the historical person essay rough draft. So I'm going to step through with you how you need to go about doing this and what the requirements are using the Jonathan Edwards sample paper that I gave you. So if you have your packet that you picked up last week, I'm going to need for you to find in the packet the sample historical person essay, because I'm going to be referring to this today as an example to help you in your writing of your essay. So there are a couple of things I have up on the board as usual that I want to go through with you. And again, we're using the Jonathan Edwards essay as an example. So when you get ready to write your rough draft, yesterday we worked on introduction sentences. So your paragraph would certainly start off with your introduction sentence. And then following that, there should be at least 5 sentences that would include the supporting details. This would be the information about, when this person was born, when they died, what were their jobs, occupations, or roles, and what were their accomplishments or effects on history. That would be the 5 supporting detail sentences, and then you would end with a conclusion sentence. Now, so this is the format of your essay. We're not going to be working on the conclusion sentence just yet. We've already done the introduction sentence, and now today we're going to focus on, or I should even say for the rest of the week, we're going to focus on the 5 sentences with supporting details. And you're just going to use your outline to help you write this. Your outline is just like your roadmap of how you're going to organize your essay and what information it's going to include. So again, if you'll take a look at the sample historical person essay, this is a final copy. So I want you to bear that in mind. Today you're not going to be looking for perfection, of course. We're going to have opportunities to go back and revise and edit, but we're going to look at this as an example and just use it as an example. So let's take a look. Jonathan Edwards was an unforgettable Massachusetts preacher who helped Christians in believing and fearing God. Now that's the introduction sentence. It's bolded just to help you follow along there. Okay, now all of the sentences that follow before the conclusion sentence would be the supporting details. That's what we're going to work on today. So let's take a look. He was born on October 5th, 1703, to Timothy and Esther Edwards, and grew up in East Windsor, Connecticut, with his 10 siblings. After attending Yale University, he pursued his desire to become a preacher and a theologian. Following the death of his grandfather, who was the pastor of a church in Northampton, Massachusetts, Edwards took his place. During this time, Edwards made a tremendous impact on Christian history as he worked with George Whitefield during the First Great Awakening. He preached many moving sermons, including his most famous one, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, which prompted many people to repent of their sins and commit their lives to Christ. Through his leadership and excellent biblical teaching, his congregation developed a remarkable fear and love of the Lord. Edwards died on March 22, 1758, and his last words, recorded by his daughter, were, "Trust in God and you need not fear." Jonathan Edwards led a distinctly Christ-centered life and encouraged others to trust in God through his exceptional faith, teaching, and leadership. So, in an earlier lesson, I had the outline up on my whiteboard that I used as a basis for writing this essay. So at this point, that's what you're going to do. You're just going to take your outline that I have returned to you and just use it as a roadmap. Remember, we said an outline is kind of like a skeleton, and you're just putting meat on the bones here as you're writing the essay. So today, you're going to be writing the 5 sentences with the supporting details. And then, one thing I also want to point out is that if you take a look at my example, there are some transitional words and phrases that I have included to help, transition from one event or one thing to the next. And I've underlined those actually in the paper that you have. So when I talk about how he grew up in Connecticut, I then say after attending Yale University, he pursued his desire to become a preacher and a theologian. Following the death of his grandfather, who was the pastor of a church in Northampton, Massachusetts, Edwards took his place. During this time, Edwards made a tremendous impact on Christian history. So I want you to be able to use some transitional words and phrases throughout your rough draft here to help transition the reader from one major event or fact to the next. I'm going to pause the video and get the writing folder and direct you to, and so if you can get your writing folder as well, I'll direct you to where those transitional words and phrases are. Okay, so in your writing folder, you should have, now, and if you can't find it, it would be in the back of your Writing with Skill book on page 485. There's a list of time and sequence words. So, and then of course, you should be very familiar with these. We've used these all year. Look for the category that would apply and just choose some time and sequence words that would be appropriate to put in your essay. So, this appendix of time and sequence words, either on page 485 of your writing book or it's in the pronged section of your writing folder. Have that out in addition to your outline as you write. I also want to reemphasize that you may handwrite this on a sheet of notebook paper, double-spaced, or because we are at home and not together in class, you are welcome to type it in a word processing program. Make sure that it's Times New Roman font and that it's 12-point and double-spaced. So you have that option. But your assignment for the rest of the week is to write the introduction sentence and the 5 sentences, at least 5. You may have more than 5, but you may not have less than 5 sentences with supporting details. And wait, don't write the conclusion sentence just yet. That's a separate lesson that we will do next week. But this is what you're working on. And if you could turn that in by Friday, that would be great. Monday evening by the latest. And then we'll check in from there and we'll continue with summing it all up with a conclusion sentence.